Hi, this is David Weber, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about method number 7, freelensing. Freelensing is also known as lens whacking, and it'll work with any camera. It'll work with a mirrorless camera, or it'll work with a DSLR camera, either one. Also, lens whacking or freelensing will work with just about any lens that you have. Doesn't make any difference what the lens mount is. It'll work when it comes to freelancing. Freelancing produces a unique type of an image. Here are some photos that I took recently using freelancing. Notice the extreme glare, the blur, and how they look dreamy and kind of soft. If you want to see some more freelancing examples, in the external resources at the end of this episode is a link to over 1,000 examples of freelancing images. Check them out. Freelancing, I'd say, is probably a little more popular with folks who make videos versus still images. People who make videos often use freelancing when they want to have a flashback to an earlier time, or they want to have a dream sequence. And also in the external resources at the end of this episode, you will find links to 2 free short videos using freelancing techniques. And you will see how these videos have a very artistic, dreamy effect. This effect, both in videos and on stills, cannot be replicated in post-processing. The only way to do it is by actual freelancing. Let me give you a quick demonstration on how freelancing works. First, you take the lens in your dominant hand, and then you take your camera in your non-dominant hand, and you take your lens and you hold it, I'd say about 1/4 of an inch or maybe 2 centimeters in front of your lens, of your camera. And then what you do is you move your lens around until you see an interesting image on the LCD screen on the back of your camera. And when you've got an interesting image, push the shutter. It's simple, and it really is simple. But to take a good image, to take a keeper freelancing image, I found that it took me a lot of practice before I got accomplished and before I mastered freelancing. So even though it's simple to get good at it, it does take some time. To save you some time, I've put together 10 freelancing tips I wanted to share with you quickly right now. As far as the camera itself goes, I set my camera to aperture priority, and on your menu, make sure you click Shoot Without a Lens. Use focus peaking. It'll help you to nail focus when freelancing. And of course, you don't look through the viewfinder. You look on the back LCD screen of your camera. When it comes to lenses, there are only 2 things to remember. Number 1, set your manual focus at infinity. And number 2, set your aperture as wide as it will go. And some other general tips on freelancing, you might want to consider reversing your lens. In other words, instead of putting the rear of your lens up to your camera, flip it around and put the front of your lens near your camera. Tripod. Some people use a tripod to hold their camera. That way they can use 2 hands to do finer manipulation of their lens. Chimp. And then if the exposure is either too light or dark, adjust the exposure using your compensation wheel on the top of your camera. And finally, don't go out freelancing on a windy day. Any wind over 8 or 10 miles an hour could blow damaging dust and debris into your camera sensor, and obviously that's not a good thing. What are my preferred lenses for freelancing? Well, first of all, you want a lens that has a flange focal distance about the same as your camera. If it's too short, if your lens's flange focal distance is too short, you'll get all macro images. And if your flange focal distance is too long, you're going to have too big of a gap between the end of your lens and the front of your camera. What focal lengths do I prefer? Here's my favorite Freelensing lenses here, and they vary between 40 millimeters and 58 millimeters. So between 40 and 60 millimeters are good focal lengths to use for freelensing. I would never recommend using a telephoto lens like this 200 millimeter lens for lens whacking, because you're never going to be able to get the subject in focus on your LCD screen because it simply moves too much. Well, that's about what I wanted to cover in this course on freelancing. It's fun, and like its name implies, it really is free. I'd encourage you to give it a try. And to help you get off to a good start, the next episode is a brief homework assignment that I'd like you to try. So, we'll see you in the next episode.